Nearly everyone left. Jill Mayer didn't flinch. On the entrepreneur's journey today, the Bead Industries CEO unpacks a 5-year EOS ride marked by massive turnover, radical accountability, and one book that lit the path, Necessary Endings. Real talk from a real leader. Let's get on with the show.
We're the ones who dare to dream. We won't let anyone hold us back. We'll take the road, let's travel by and build our empire piece by piece. We've got our dreams and we've got a plan. We're not afraid to take a stand. We'll face the risks and embrace the fear, cause we know that success is near. There will be times when we'll fall down, but we'll get up and turn it around. We're entrepreneurs, we're not afraid to lose. We'll keep moving forward, we got nothing to prove.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Entrepreneur's Journey, based and inspired by Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, because we are all heroes in our own journey. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, there's just a different level of heroism, of bravery, courage. That's a word that comes naturally to my guest today, Jill Mayer, who is the CEO of Bead Industries, and let me tell you, she why do I say courage? She delivered a commencement address a few years ago, and she spoke about courage. So I'm definitely gonna pick her brain and ask her a little bit about that when we get to her in about 3, 4, 5 minutes. But I always start off with my why statement. As a teacher, facilitator, and coach, I help high aspiring entrepreneurs, owners, and their leadership teams get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever changed. That word growth is a really interesting word, because you can grow up, you can grow out, you can grow top line and bottom line, revenue and EBITDA. So you can grow certainly financially, but you can also grow in terms of a human, in terms of a leader, in terms of a manager. And those are words that come very, very, those are near and dear words to EOS when we talk about leadership plus management equals accountability. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about EOS, just find out, are you running your business, or is your business running you? Take the organizational checkup and find out how healthy or unhealthy you are. And if you want to read the book that started everything, Traction, just scan that QR code and the first chapter is yours. Now, I have to tell you, I've been so lucky in the sense that this is, I think, the 20th conversation that I've had in the entrepreneur's journey. Every single, I know it's probably a little bit of narcissism when you start quoting yourself, but I'm not really quoting myself. What I try and do is come up with one quote, something that I want to share with you. And I've put together a little compilation from, the last 20 episodes or so. So here is just some of those, Jaffyisms that are all connected to my guest. All right, there will be a test, Jill, who's been watching in the green room. So this is something that I wrote for, inspired by you. Accountability means you GWC your character in a company that reflects it. Now, for those of you that are watching and you don't know what GWC is, it's a tool within EOS's toolbox that we say gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. It's how we determine that someone is in the right seat. And generally, someone that is in the right seat is someone that is going to GWC the 5 roles. And by 5 roles, we really mean, and we have to attach the idea of accountability. And so I thought to myself, which is when you're not accountable, you are breaking a promise. That's not my quote. That comes from Walt Brown, who is implementer number 3 at EOS. So he said, lack of accountability is a broken promise. And I thought to myself, isn't that integrity? Isn't that about character? So if you're not accountable, that says something about you and your character, but also it has to mirror the company. What do they say? You are the company that you keep, or you are the company that keeps you. And so it's not just your character, it's also the character of the company, and there has to be consistency. I'm so curious as to what Jill thinks about that. So let's bring her onto the show, and let me tell you a little bit about her. Jill Mayer is the CEO of Bead Industries, a 5th generation manufacturing company in Connecticut. She started at Bead in 2007 as financial controller and took the reins as CEO in 2018. She holds a BS in business from UVM and a Master of Science from Chaplin College. She currently serves as board member of the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, Manufacture CT Bridgeport Hospital, and is an active member of Vistage Women in Manufacturing and the National Small Business Leadership Council. How does she have time to even do her job? Jill grew up in Alaska, where her family moved 8 times before she turned 18. She resides in Cheshire, Connecticut, with her husband, their 2 boys, and their German Shepherd. Jill, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm happy for you to be here too. Let's just dig into that bio, not the German Shepherd part, but immediately the thing that I noticed was this idea of moving 8 times. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what impact that had on you, and maybe what lessons or learnings came from that have helped you as a business owner and a leader today.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue because I think, I think entrepreneurs are gritty. And I think I don't know if you've read Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, but she does all of these studies and basically tries to understand how people can push through things and be so resilient. And a lot of the people who were able to do that had to adapt in their childhood. And so we moved a whole lot, which meant that, I was in a new school every year or 2. And, making friends was a challenge. And so it was, it felt a bit lonely, but constant change and adaptability was something that I developed really well. And, eventually, and I do think entrepreneurs as well, they get stir crazy, they get bored easily. So all of those things were really present in my life, in my many moves. And especially a lot of those moves were in Alaska, where it's just this vast wilderness. And so just really wonderful places to live and a place to grow up and to explore. So that was really my childhood, was adapting to situations and figuring things out.
So we talk about adaptability, but there's also the essence of overcoming adversity, and so when we talk about adversity, I like to think of superheroes, and so this is the superhero that I chose for you. So. Now, there is AI involved, but you're I don't know, you're Captain Courage, kind of a little bit of a Captain America. There's going to be a lot of AI involved as well. So talk a little bit about adversity. How important is adversity ultimately in shaping in shaping leaders, but also shaping the person that you've become today?
I mean, well, first of all, that picture is awesome. Her skin was glowing. I would love to have skin like that.
Do you
God
like
love
it?
AI. But yeah, no, shaping adversity. And you mentioned it in your intro. It's a lot of uncomfortable situations or opportunities or difficulties or challenges um, that you sort of shift your mindset into taking on and pushing through that uncomfortability. And I suppose we call that courage, when you're brave about something that you don't feel comfortable doing, or something that isn't necessarily a good time, but you push through it. And I don't know if there's a stubbornness in people, or if whether it's inherent at birth, or if it's learned and nurtured. But it does seem to me like, you mentioned the commencement speech, for example. My first inclination was to say no, absolutely not. And I was ready to do that. And then all I could think about for the next 24 hours was, well, why would I say no? Why can't I do that? And so I was challenging my own self. So which I think is a stronger pull than proving to other people. When you prove to yourself, there's something in, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs where they just have this self drive. I don't know where it comes from, but it's almost like, you can't tell me I can't do something. I'm doing it. And the more I the more I fidget and am uncomfortable with something, the more my brain tells me I got to do it, because it's going to make me stronger. So I don't know. I don't know if that's similar for you or for others, but I see a lot of entrepreneurs that they just won't say no to things. And I'm not suggesting we say yes to everything, but I do think that in opportunity, there's opportunities everywhere, and it's a matter of saying yes or no.
I've played with this idea of, from just do it to typically the quick start, which is something we know about in EOS land. When we take our Colbys, our profiles, is this idea of the fire ready aim, as opposed to the ready aim fire, or the version of screw it, let's do it. Let's just say yes to everything and then figure it out later. But that's something that comes naturally to me, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it just motivates me. But I know it's not for everyone.
For sure.
All right, so I want to we're going to play. We're going to stay in AI land
Okay.
for just a brief moment. You will notice that I asked you for some interesting facts about yourself. And so this is what our reporters, our investigators, they went into the field. They dug up all the deep, dark secrets about you. I'm just joking. There weren't any. But let's go back. Let's go back to this idea of moving around. So we actually have a photo of you as a Latchkey kid. See, which is you're a fraternal twin, and the the Latchkey kids. I wonder, do kids today know what Latchkey kids were? But why don't you tell about your childhood as a Latchkey kid, and I have to hear about at least one near-death experience.
I've got more stories than you would believe, but actually I did have freckles like that, so that's pretty accurate. So with my twin sister, and we were home. So Latchkey kid, for those young folks who don't know what that means, it's we were home after school without our parent, because our parents were working, and we weren't home for long, but long enough to get in trouble, and home at an age where today I'm not sure. I don't know that they had aftercare programs the way they do today, but I wasn't in one. And so at 6 and 7 years old, we were home. And we used to pack ourselves snacks, my sister and I, and then climb a tree and eat the snacks at the top of it. But there were a couple of times where there was one time where we were in the attic, and my sister wanted to be she wanted me to close the trunk. So she was going to get in it, and I'll close it. But then I couldn't open it. And actually my parents had come home, surprisingly had come home while we were playing this little game. And she was muffled in there. She did not seem happy to be in there. I couldn't get it open. So I went downstairs to look for a utensil. I think I found a butter knife or something. And my parents were wondering what I was doing. And I was pretty frantic about finding some sort of a tool. And so they followed me up the stairs, and nobody could open the trunk. And I remember my dad just drop kicked it, just gave it the big, like he could hear that she was struggling in there, and obviously she was losing air, and he drop kicked the trunk. The lid flew open, and a huge breath of oxygen my sister took. And so that was one where she didn't die, but it's a close call.
Well, thank God no one died. And also, thank God no one died from your guitar play. And I mean, by the way, I have to tell you, and I know I say this in every episode, one thing I've learned is that AI cannot make ugly people look good. AI only makes beautiful people look even more beautiful. So that's definitely you. For me, no matter what I do, I cannot make, AI will not make me look anything other than someone who has a face for radio. So I am hopeless. But here's another AI rendition, which is during COVID, you taught yourself to play guitar. So I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to sing. I can sing, to play the guitar. But I think there's something else about you, as you know, there's a picture being formed. Here's a picture that says, during a time of adversity, a time of boredom, etc., you could have been binge watching the White Lotus on Netflix, but instead you taught yourself to play guitar. And another instance where you went from complete unknown, having zero capability or competency, to just figuring it out. So tell us about, can you play Stairway to Heaven right now? How's the progress?
I can play Hotel California. No, I know some chords, and so I grew up singing as well. We should get together. But so when you
School
sing,
of Rock, I mean, it's a Connecticut thing.
When you sing, you can't, you're a cappella unless you have an instrument to play with. And I was terrible at the piano as a child. My mom is a wonderful piano player. And so my family is very, very musical. And I just wanted to learn to play along with something. But yeah, I mean, I do love to learn constantly. I think that's another trait of an entrepreneur, is like they never stop learning. And I have colleagues that do the same thing, where they're out doing an Ironman, or learning all sorts of interesting skills. Rick was learning how to make mushrooms. But I think that the message to maybe folks who are listening could be, I think more importantly, a stress outlet. COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of unknowns, sickness, fear. And I really find music to be such an outlet for me. And I'm also very fascinated by making sure that your the entire body, spirit, mind, emotional, that all aspects of your life that you're paying attention to. So keeping yourself mentally sharp with reading or learning or whatever, making sure you're doing something for stress relief, making sure you're doing something physical. I think Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Light, was like, sweat for 30 minutes a day. It doesn't matter what you do, but just sweat. And I think I just believe in the whole self and really tailoring to all of those things. So guitar was my stress relief from COVID.
Now, I sweat when Rick comes with his mushroom soup and presents it to me. I think there might be other kind of mushrooms. But for those of you that are watching, Rick, I'm a coach, and I coach a system called EOS, and Rick is a coach as well. Rick is Jill's coach, and so that's how we come connected to one another. Now, I was smiling when you were talking about this. Because here's something else we have in common, Jill. I'm studying happiness at the moment at the Happiness Studies Academy, and I've just spent maybe in the last 2 or 3 days learning about holism as opposed to dualism, specifically mind-body. The thing that you just said is the very thing that I've learned over the last day or two. Healthy body, healthy mind. Fake it till you make it is what I learned this morning, which is ultimately where the body actually informs the mind. But then there's the other way around, where the mind, positive thinking and positive acting. So holism, the thing that you spoke about, is this is the very thing that I was learning today, and how powerful it is. And of course, the mind informing the body is the placebo effect. So that's what I learned about too, the power of the placebo effect. So we can do incredible things when we are all completely in sync, mind and body.
And they're learning so much about the body informing the mind and vice versa. And what I was going to say earlier was that, when I used to get really stressed out, when I first took over for my father, and it just was a huge responsibility. And, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, which is a more popular term today. And of course, more so in a family business, when people think you just got the job because mom and dad gave it to you, so to speak. But whenever I would go on vacation, I would get deathly sick. And I just think that's silly, because you would think that you would feel better when you took a break. But when you go, and you're super dialed up and stressed, and then you just stop cold turkey, your body is telling you that this is overload for me. So I spent so many vacations sick that I thought, okay, I have to do something. I have to spend a little time each day, and not just wait for that 1 or 2 weeks per year where you go get some rest and relaxation. And I think there's other books out about higher performers, and how they really prioritize their health and body. And I just don't think you can do, I'm running a very small business, but I just don't think you can do a job where you have the weight of your employees and your employees' families, and these large responsibilities and these huge decisions that you're making at times. I don't think you can do that if you're not healthy.
I think you're onto something big time. Funnily enough, the last twice, the last two times my wife has gone on a trip by herself, she's gotten sick. And she was like, I don't know what, now I know why this happened. So looks like, I don't know, positive. Did you think this would be about positive psychology, mind-body codes? We're in a different territory as well. And I don't know how I'm going to bring it home, but ultimately we've learned things about leadership and entrepreneurship. We've learned about grit and determination. We've learned now, in terms of this second learning, this idea about the holistic or holism. What the hell are we going to learn about horses, about golf, etc.? Because the third insight about you is despite being bitten, you stepped on and bucked off by horses as a little girl, you still love them. Now that you're older, you feel the same way about golf. So what about golf on a horse? So that was the last. This looks like a painting as well. So I don't know if you can find the lesson for entrepreneurs and leaders about still. I suppose that's the lesson, right? Which is just being able to stay the course, right? Just because it's hard doesn't mean you give up on it. And maybe, I don't know, you play. Is this polo? I don't know what's going on here. You tell me.
Yeah, it could be polo.
Is it a new sport?
I never thought to combine the two. I never thought to combine the two. No, I think it's if you are, if you spent a lot of time around horses, you probably had all of those things happen. But I hadn't had that many experiences with horses, and all of those things happen. And I guess I figured that, I know when I was stepped on and my foot turned just completely black and blue, I begged my sister not to tell my parents, because I didn't want the horse to get in trouble, or I didn't want the horse to be blamed. It's just an animal. It walked forward. It didn't do it on purpose. But I think that, the fact that it happened to me in a short period of time, and I still loved horses, just meant that, when you're really passionate about something, you're going to push through all of these things. And I think that's similar with golf, and that, there's so many aspects of the game. Just when you get one thing down, something else is terrible. You change, your grip, your hand position, anything, and the entire game goes to hell. But I think the leadership lesson might be, if we're going to circle this back, is that leadership can get uncomfortable, and I think there's times in our careers where our courage is tested. Certainly, when I was a kid, horses tested my courage, and when I'm playing golf, just finishing the game sometimes feels like I've got courage. But in terms of the role, I've had, and I'm happy to share a funny story. I've had uncomfortable experiences where I didn't think I could do the thing I had to do, but it was the job and I had to do it. So, and it was fairly early on. My father had retired. I took over as CEO, and we have a president in our electronics division and a president in our plumbing division. And one of our division presidents, who is twice my age, had agreed to these objectives, these strategic objectives for the year, and he hadn't completed any of them. And it wasn't because he couldn't; it was because he decided that they weren't a priority. And so I had talked with our board and had said, "Well, I don't see how we can give this person a raise if they didn't do what we asked. So I don't feel that we should be incentivizing that attitude." So they couldn't agree more, and they said, "Well, great. Why don't you go tell him he won't be getting a raise?" And I realized that even though it was my suggestion, I was the one that was going to have to do the deed, so to speak. So, I broke the news to him. He absolutely lost it. He exploded. He was red in the face. He was pacing. He was shouting. It was actually a pretty unprofessional response. And so I was really shocked and still maintained my composure, but inside I was dying. I was shaking. I was anxious. I was a little afraid, actually. But I calmly told him that we would resume our discussion when he had calmed down, and I left and went and got in my car because I was driving back to headquarters. And I broke down when I got into my car in my safe zone. But then I realized also that I had done something really, really hard, and I didn't break, and it made me feel so much stronger. And it really made me feel like I could do this job. If I could get through that difficult conversation for the sake of the business and the good of the company, then I could do the role. And that was, so I think stories like that, or your sort of those courageous moments, those are the things that build your confidence as a leader over the course of your career, until you just feel like, somebody else, you see other folks when you're growing managers and leaders in your own on your own team, you see them have those same struggles, but then you see how much they grow after they get through it. And so I love sharing that story with them, and I love encouraging them when they've got a challenging conversation or a challenging some sort of a challenging thing that they need to get through. And I share that because it's like everybody had to go through it to get to the other side.
I'm going to give you the first official air horn. I love that response. I mean, it was, you're wondering what you got yourself into now.
I know.
On the show. Look,
first I didn't know it was live, and now you've got all these fun
yeah, I mean,
gadgets.
Isn't the first thing we say when we start the EOS journey is we say have fun, is one of the most important things. So as long as you feel comfortable and have fun, then I'm doing my job. I wanted to talk about there were a couple of things in that story. And by the way, the word that I was thinking of as you were telling the story was resilience. And grit and resilience actually kind of are almost two sides of the same coin. The ability to just keep going and to draw, whether it's the horse that, kind of stepped on you, just to keep, that perseverance. It's so powerful. But as you told the story, I was like, okay, let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Let's talk about you coming into this almost feeling this this self awareness or being self-conscious, imposter syndrome, nepotism, or at least the fear thereof. I once heard that the only people that don't suffer from imposter syndrome are imposters. So think about that. It's a
That is
beautiful
interesting.
way of saying you're normal. Has it ever gone away? Do you still have it today? Was there a moment when you're like, I'm here, I deserve to be here, and all of those voices, those limiting beliefs in your in your mind were kind of at least at bay?
I mean, I think with my teams, it's been, I feel like I've built the credibility over the years of little things, EOS being one of them, bringing that into the organization and having it really embraced, and people really loving it. Things like that over the years have built the credibility. Do I still come into the office late because I was at a board meeting at 8 a.m. and so I roll in at 10, and I worry that my team thinks I just got out of bed, and because I can do anything I want, so to speak. And then I just kind of push the thought away, because you could spend a lot of wasted energy on negative, unproductive thoughts like that. And so it's one of those things where you just push them away, because it's not going to do anyone any good to feel that way. I don't need to walk around and tell everyone where I was at. I don't think that's necessary either. But yeah, I've always got that little voice in my ear saying, what are people thinking that you're doing right now? And I do think we keep a community calendar. We try to be transparent about where we are, every day, and what we're doing. But I think that you have to model the behavior you want to see. When we have
Right.
folks working from home, when we have people, at external meetings, they let people know they're out, so they know where to find them or know when to reach them. And then you don't worry if you're coming in a little late or you have to leave early, because you've been transparent about that. So I think that's a tiny little story, but I think those things still happen. No matter what I do, I think I'm always going to feel that self-conscious about that, but keeps you sharp, I guess.
And it keeps you humble, and it creates the space and the allowance to keep growing and learning.
Exactly.
So yeah, so I love the response, and I jotted down. I just wrote the words, the 1 second rule, because I've just completed a cohort on something called positive intelligence. But even I remember listening to a podcast as I was running during COVID that said, fear, for example, fear is actually quite healthy, whether it's your survival instinct, but only for a second. So the idea of sometimes, and maybe more times, oftentimes, these emotions, these niggles, they're healthy because they keep you on your toes. They keep you alive, but only for a second. And the
Mm.
minute that it's 2 seconds or 5 seconds, it's ruminating, it's starting to fester. That's the time that you have to disrupt it, and you have to, as you said, compartmentalize it, put it aside, or be able to overcome it. And I mean, it's easier said than done, right? 1 second. Some people feel like for 1 second they actually have respite. But that's one way to think about it, which is it's normal. You're normal. Accept it, embrace it, and then move on.
Yeah, there's a book called The 5 Second Rule. I forget the name of the woman who wrote the book, Melissa something, but she was always saying that whenever you're nervous about speaking or anything like that, that if you take that nervous and if you take the nerves and you reframe it to be like you're excited to share something, so that when you take a nervous, oh, everyone's going to look at me or judge me, or what if I say the wrong thing, and you flip it to be like, I want to help the folks in the room with something that I can share that maybe might help them. And if it comes from a place of help, that nervous energy, you can twist it into excitement, which I think is very cool. And then I think the other thing too that she was saying with the 5 second rule is that if you count backwards, you can actually snap your brain out. So if you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can snap your brain out of a thought. So if you're sleeping in and you're like, oh, I've got to get up early, and you've hit your alarm button a few times, if you count backwards and pop out of bed, apparently it works. I've tried it a few times. I do think the sleeping routine is just something you have to dial in. But yeah, I think everybody's got their tips and tricks and things that they do. But I do agree with you that the sort of nervousness is a good thing. I always get nervous right before our quarterly board meetings. They're my bosses. It's an outside board of directors. My father brought a few of them on. I've brought a few folks on. And, we're presenting our quarterly financials and forecasting our next quarter. And if I'm not nervous before that meeting, I think that maybe we're doing it wrong, because there should be some tension there. And the tension is that we're doing all these wonderful things. I want them to translate into results, and I want to share those results with you. And I want your guidance on what that should be. And I hope I'm doing the right thing. And you don't know till you get in the room and you hear their feedback. So yeah, nervousness is not a bad thing. And I think if we try to make it go away, it's a lost cause.
And again, it's mind body, it's holism, right? It's your body telling you something. It's the butterflies in your tummy, or it's a physical or physiological reaction. And the reframe is very powerful. Same thing with dealing with conflict in a room. So let's talk about the room. Let's talk about specifically the subject of accountability, because I was fascinated. If I wasn't trying to be like, even in the intro, to be kind of the the controversy, the provocation to get people to, but this is literally what you wrote, which is you've gone through a period of time when your entire company has turned over, but specifically what you said is when, and I assume EOS is a big part of this, Rick is your coach, etc., that when you embraced and adopted this culture and this climate of accountability, people basically had, I guess, two choices, which is, shape up or ship out. So tell us about that story. It sounds fascinating.
Absolutely. Yeah, my dad, when he visits the shop now, he says, "I don't know anyone," and it's okay. But yeah, no, when we started EOS, it was right before COVID with our electronics division, and then we started EOS for our plumbing division right after COVID. But in both cases, and I told you I was extremely passionate about talking about EOS for this very reason, is that we had a bar, whether we knew it or not, there was a bar. And we had folks that were below the bar. And what I didn't realize was happening, which I can see so clearly now in hindsight, is that when we had higher performers, they noticed that the bar and they lowered their performance. And so when you have, even if you have one or two employees like that, that happens. But we ended up, when we implemented EOS, one of our core values was accountability, which I know is probably a pretty popular one. It's kind of like saying, you want world peace, but we actually hired for it. We talked about it. We posted on the wall. We said what it meant. We rewarded when we saw it every single time. And so we just made it a big deal. And then the other thing too is myself and our managers, we were accountable as well. We led the way with accountability. If I have a direct report that's not meeting their metrics, I have to hold them accountable. Even if, it's a tough year, the economy's bad or this and that, I still have to hold that line. But what happened was, and I'll tell you today, that we had a rock star employee from 5 years ago, and that employee is still great, but compared to us raising the bar and increasing the accountability, that employee went from being top employee to probably closer to the bottom, just because we raised the level. And if you don't think your employees see other people not being accountable, you should check again, because they see it. And I even had employees come to me. They could see someone on their phone the entire day, or they could see that they left early and didn't complete their work, or that every time we were looking for a production order, it was still sitting on their desk. So, and if whatever you allow in your organization in terms of performance, everybody's going to rise or lower to that. So that was probably the most impactful thing that EOS brought to us, and with Rick's help at Outpace. So that was very cool for us.
What's that quote about whatever you permit, you allow, or something like that? I'll find I'll find the quote.
Well,
You know
similar
which?
to that one, I don't know that one specifically, but similar to that one, that's was a culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could have a strategic plan, you could have objectives, and you could try to execute on those. But if the culture is, yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it, or priorities are always changing, and I don't believe that this is really the priority, or everybody's fighting everyone on what the priority is, then the strategy isn't going to be achieved. So
I absolutely loved. I mean, it was an amazing story, and as you were telling it about the idea of lowering the bar, I thought about the incredible French Open final that just happened last weekend, and I don't even watch tennis anymore. So Alcatraz, is that right? Alcaraz and Skinner, if I even got those names correct. But this was the number 1 and 2 seeded men in the world. It was a 5-set match. It was a marathon. It probably one of the 3 longest French Opens, if not Grand Slam finals in history. And
wow.
Alcaraz was 2 sets to, I think he was 2 sets to love down, and he might have been, he was certainly match points down, and he won. And the thing is, when you are in the arena with someone that is truly going to challenge you, you're going to just raise your game and raise the bar, as opposed to, playing with someone who's not as good as you, who's not going to challenge you, and realizing that you're going to worsen in that frame. So I also
And
love.
Joe, just on that topic too, I know a big point of contention for every generation is the laziness of the generation below them. And I would say that from my experience, because we've had a lot of hires that are younger folks, they love a challenge, and they will leave if you do not challenge them and push them, and if there's no professional development. And I think it comes across as, oh, they just want to be promoted, and they want, to be running the company in 1 year. But what it is they want to be challenged, and they want to see their career path. They want an idea of, is it going anywhere? And if so, where's it going? And I think that it gets misconstrued.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my oldest is 24, and she's in the working world right now, and so I see her and I see the world through her eyes. My middle son is going into the working world now. He just graduated from college, and I think to myself that why would I assume that they just want to clock in and clock out, and that if they're given the challenge, will they rise? Will they be the best versions of themselves? Of course they will. I mean, I see them as my kids, and I would want that for them. But I suppose if you don't challenge them, and if you just give them that complacency, then that's who they will become.
Right.
And it's just, and so it's almost like prejudging a generation without actually giving them the opportunity to succeed.
Well, even the folks who clock in and clock out at our facility, they want to grow and be challenged and do more, whether that's learning other machines, or learning how to do some inspection, or whatever it is. So yeah, even and to be honest, sometimes I fantasize about a clock in, clock out job, because you as soon as you clock out, you're done, and you don't have to put one more thought into your day until the next morning when you clock back in. And there's something very appealing about that when, as entrepreneurs or business owners, you go home and your mind is constantly thinking about.
That's exactly how it is for you, right? I mean, you leave the office, you don't think about work, you don't check your email, you're just completely free.
Play my guitar, yeah. No, actually,
Exactly.
I think those types of hobbies.
Play golf on a horse.
Yeah,
everything.
Those types of hobbies and outlets do help you kind of release your mind from the long day. And Rick was the one who even said, because EOS calls it a clarity break, right? Where you actually unplug and take a break, because you, surprisingly, if you do that, you come back clear-minded about a specific challenge or problem that you're dealing with. Obviously, you can't be doing your hobbies more than your job, but I do think peppered in there is advantageous in terms of leadership and decision making. So
there is no doubt that Jill Mayer takes her clarity breaks on a horse with a golf club and a guitar. I know it. I've visualized it. It's the whole visualization exercise. I couldn't agree more. I had Gino Wickman on my show, and he was talking about the EOS life. And for those of you that don't know, the EOS life, we say, is doing what you love, working with people you love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately, and having time to pursue other passions. And I actually wrote down that that's my personal 10-year target. I want to live the EOS life in 10 years' time, where for me that means 150 days in the year I am off. 150 days I do not pick up my phone. I do not look at my email. I'm truly free, which is not to say that I don't love it. I love it. I love work. I love working all the time. I mean, for me, what I'm doing right now is not work. This is love, but I want to be completely unplugged. And it's something that I'm taking seriously enough that I'm saying is 10 years out. Because if I said I could do it tomorrow, in a week or month, I'd be lying to myself. So that's my goal. I mean, come back in 10 years and we can see whether I succeeded or not.
Yeah. Well, my other recommendation would be to schedule it into your calendar. I mean, I live and breathe my calendar, and if it doesn't make its way onto the calendar, it's probably not going to happen. I actually missed a meeting yesterday because the alert didn't pop up and tell me I had a calendar, which just my calendar tells me where to go and what to do and when, and the alert didn't work. So I was, 5 minutes late for the meeting, but I pencil in clarity breaks. I don't even write clarity breaks. I write CB on my calendar and just block the time. It's the only way to really do it. I mean, we just are slaves to our emails nowadays, and you can really lose a lot of time and look back and say, what did I do that was fun or rewarding or that reduced my stress or helped me be a better leader? So
I want to talk to you about the book that you mentioned, Necessary Endings. But before we get there, I also just want to go back to something your dad said, this idea of I don't know anyone. And I tell the story. I started my career working for a QSR, a fast food chicken company called Nando's Chickenland in South Africa. And I actually tell the story of how Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's, he knew every single operator, every joint venture partner, because it was a JV, not a franchise model. And he would go into he knew everyone. He knew their wife or their husband. He knew their kids' names. And he would be always the first person to go into the new store when it opened. He would pay with his own money, not like company money, for the first piece of chicken. And then they would take that note, that piece of currency, and everyone would sign it and they would frame it. And eventually what would happen with Nando's is, he'd know who was opening up a store, but he couldn't go there in person because of his own calendar, or because maybe there were two openings at the same time. And then as the company continued to grow, it would be at a point where, oh, who's opening up the store? I don't think I've met him or her as well. And so it was that inevitability where you know everyone to where you know no one. And to me, that was almost the beginning of the end, I would have said, the law of 150. And suddenly you've made me think of it completely differently today, which is it's actually okay. It's not a bad thing that you don't know anyone, as long as they know each other, or they know your core values, or they know where they're meant to be, or they know why they're meant to be, that cultural component. So you've made me rethink and challenge that statement as almost not a necessary ending, but an inevitable evolution of a company growing up.
Yeah, I mean, we're not so big. I certainly know everybody in the company, and I think my dad didn't, because he's retired and he's got a cabin in Vermont, and he was popping in for a board meeting and I didn't know folks. But I hear what you're saying, and it is true. When companies grow and scale, they're not able to be as as family oriented as they once were. I think as long as you said, I think you said the rule of 150. For whatever reason, I thought it was 300, but the companies do break into smaller divisions and groups so that they still have that sort of sense of community. And I do think that that's important. But certainly if we hire a new employee or there's a temp on the floor and I haven't met them, I'll just walk up and introduce myself. But yeah, I mean, if you have good leaders in your organization and they know everybody, they can make sure that you're abreast of everything that's going on. And like you said, if the accountability and the core values and the resilience in your organization is truly flowing throughout your organization, then people will know most people.
Yeah, it's actually called Dunbar's Law, the Law of 150. And I'm fascinated by it because I wrote a book called Built to Suck, The Inevitable Demise of the Corporation and How to Save It, which is, and the thesis there was that suckage is inevitable. One day we will all suck. So it's almost like accept it and prepare for it and prolong it, or, if you can, but it is inevitable. So, just a little bit of provocation there, but let's stay provocative, which is, I don't know this for a fact, I just know it's true, that we talk about right person, right people, right seats. So I was thinking, I don't know, could we call it right horse, right saddle, RHRS? As I said, I don't know this for a fact, I just know it's true. What's your love for necessary endings? Is it about being able to determine when it's time to retire a horse? Or people know, I don't know, is it about right people, right seats? Is it about accountability? Tell us more.
I think it's about, it could be about, it could cover right people, right seats, but I do think it also, it's a little bit about letting go. And that's not just, in the workplace. I think, it talks about relationships in there. I'll give you an example of, let's say you've kept in touch with an old high school friend. But over the years, you guys kind of drift apart. I think that it's okay to let that relationship go if it's just too far. You did have the time with them, and all good things come to an end sometimes. But it's also related to business relationships, partnerships, and various things. So where did you go? Did you disappear? Oh, you're there. I thought you.
I'm just,
you dropped out.
Well, you could have got what I call the voice of God. This is the voice of God, which is, it's like the producer whispering. That means I'm playing with too many buttons as well. I am the one-man band. I'm like the person you see, in the street corner with the cymbals and the accordion and the harmonica and the drums every time I lift my leg. I have a lot of fun. I'm able to laugh at my jokes. I'm even allowed to swear, like if I say mother. So
Oh, that's cool. So would that work for me too, or just you?
Well, if we coordinate.
Okay.
By the way, behind me, I've got these pins, I guess, and I was like, what the hell do they even do? What are these pins? Where do these pins go? How does someone decide to get into the pin business?
Well, they start in the metal chain business, and then we've evolved into the electronics business, and we still sell chain, but the electronics business is definitely where the growth has really been. And I can't tell what some of those pins, one of them looks like a crimped pin and the other one looks maybe like a power cord pin, but they basically are custom electronic components. There are large standard pin manufacturers in our country, Amphenol, Molex. There's like 3 big pin manufacturers, and we do custom work. So we do all of the things that are too small for them to set up a cell and do, and maybe even out of their wheelhouse in terms of process. But we're metal forming pins, and we're using a cold forming process it's pretty much like we're banging on metal to shape it, and we can create all sorts of retention features. We can have hollow pins, solid pins, and it's reliability for an electromechanical application. So we're in airbags so that they can deploy when in an accident. We're in some license plate lights. We're retrofit on some airplanes. We're in some medical applications. Our pins are probably in your house when you we pull your smoke detector off to replace your batteries. There's a pin sticking out of the ceiling, and that's our pin. So we used to sell the pins on the end of those fluorescent lights. Now we do pins for some LED pins for UV light treatment facilities. So we're in a lot of very niche places, which is exciting. It's both challenging and exciting because we could be almost anywhere. So I'm not sure if we should be in, robotics and drones and different, some of these new things coming down the pike, but we know that we have a place, and we know that we need to get better at finding where those places are. So that's kind of been our journey these last year or two. Once we overhauled the workforce and got through COVID and the supply chain crisis, now we're on revenue mode, and we're really just trying to find our next cool place that we're going to sell our electronic pins. So it's kind of an exciting time for us.
I feel almost like like Forrest Gump with Bubba talking about we got shrimp grits and we got shrimp waffles.
And I'm on the boat. I'm on the boat right now, and we just caught a tire and a boot and two shrimp. But pretty soon I'm going to be pulling up a net filled with shrimp, and I'll be on the back of a magazine.
Or pins, or pins as well.
Yeah.
Jill, you talk about shaping and, shaping metal, but you're also, you're shaping an industry, you're shaping minds, you're shaping young students, you're shaping young women that want to get into manufacturing. Talk a little bit about, just in the last few moments we have together, this space, manufacturing itself. I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I have a couple of manufacturing clients now myself. The industry, whether it's tariffs, whether it's AI, whether it's automation, the constant change, not just in terms of products, of processes, but also of people. Where is it heading, and how do you see it kind of changing over the next several years?
Well, that's a giant question.
In only 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, you had talked about your personal goals for the year, for the next 10 years, and one of my main goals, and I wrote this down after one of our quarterly offsite sessions, is to grow and develop and rise to be my best and bring as many people as I can with me. And I think that even as a small organization that we are, we've got folks that want to grow and learn and develop, and I want to try to help them, and that's fulfillment enough for me. And what I certainly do not want to do is grow into a $1 billion company and forget what we're all about and eke out a tiny little profit for investors and shareholders and and a publicly traded company. I think that being a privately held family business and having our employees be part of our family and still trying to grow and get the next best thing. I mean, it's not just about creating jobs, but if we can also get a nice margin on our products because the value is there, then we can share that with our employees. We have an awesome profit sharing plan. I would like to be able to share more. And, I have a colleague who does a lot of philanthropic things at their company. I would love to be able to do that. I don't think we're there yet, but I would like to get there. And, with additional profit from growth and development, I think we can make the workplace a better place to be. I mean, we spend more time with our employees sometimes than we do with our own families at home. So I guess that's kind of, in broadly speaking, my goal and what fulfills me and what gets me out of bed every day. So.
It's, life is short. Make the most of our time on this little small planet. But also, Jill, I am confidently saying that you will not suck. You do not suck, nor will you suck, because the book was started and inspired by Jay Chiat in the advertising world, who said, "Let's see how big we get before we suck, before we go bad." And so sometimes be careful what you wish for. The size and the scale can move from the dream that you once wanted to the albatross around your neck. This has been another episode of The Entrepreneur's Journey, where we were introduced to a superhero. Certainly, there she is in all her glory, lifting people up physically and every other way. If you want to watch more interviews just like this one, you can subscribe to the channel. It's called Healthy and Smart on YouTube, because you have to have both. You can't just be smart and have the IQ. You need the EQ as well. If you want to, by the way, I love this on your LinkedIn, Making Way to What is Possible. It inspired me to even come up with the banner, the idea of the art of the possible. There are those who see things and ask why, and then there are those who see things that could be and ask why not. So thank you for sharing your EOS journey, your own entrepreneurial story, finding a little bit more about your family. You can connect with Jill on LinkedIn, JB Mayer, and follow on Instagram if you probably want to see some of those, I don't know, clarity breaks or golf lessons or whatever the case may be. Jill, final word is yours. What's one thing you want to leave people with?
Oh, geez. Keep being courageous, no matter what, even if that means just showing up. So this has been a lot of fun, Joe. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Showing up is 9/10 of the battle. Take care, everyone, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.
We're the ones who dare to dream. We won't let anyone hold us back. We'll take the road, let's travel by and build our empire piece by piece. We've got our dreams and we've got a plan. We're not afraid to take a stand. We'll face the risks and embrace the fear, cause we know that success is near. There will be times when we'll fall down, but we'll get up and turn it around. We're entrepreneurs, we're not afraid to lose. We'll keep moving forward, we got nothing to prove.